You're listening to episode 28 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, you'll learn how Rachael gave up fad diets so she could get her period back. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Laura Schoenfeld. I'm a registered dietitian and coach trained in functional medicine with a passion for helping women just like you ditch perfectionism and use food, fitness, and self-care to fuel your bigger God-given purpose. I believe that it's possible to achieve your biggest life-changing goals without the frustration, obsession, or negative self-talk that so many women subject themselves to every day. All you need are the right tools, the right mindset, and the faith to turn your dreams into reality. I'm here to guide you along the way. The truth is that you are so much more than a body, and I'm on a mission to help you change the way you think and act at a core beliefs level so you can transform your physical, mental, and spiritual health from the inside out. Are you ready to become fed and fearless in your pursuit of a healthy, meaningful life? Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. Hey there, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, I'm your host as always, and I'm so pumped about today's episode because I have an interview with one of my clients who went through the Get Your Period Back coaching program, who shares her story about letting go of fad diets and high intensity training in order to be able to get her period back successfully. I have with me today Rachael, who's a Southern California native, an avid snowboarder, and a gym rat who's currently working as a director of operations for a manufacturing company. She is one of my awesome Get Your Period Back coaching clients, and she has really been an inspiration for that group for how fast she's been successful in getting her period back and how much her life has changed as a result of the changes that she's made along the way. So I'm so pumped for you all to hear her story. She's really inspirational, and I just love her positive attitude about the whole experience in general. And I know you're going to get so much out of hearing her story and seeing what her life is like now that she's gone through this transformation. So without further ado, here is my client, Rachael. All right, everybody, I'm so excited to have with me on the show today, Rachael. How are you doing today, Rachael?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Awesome. Well, I would love to just get us kicked off with a little bit of background information about you. Being that this is a case study, you are a client of mine. We don't have the opportunity to necessarily look up your website or anything like that. So if you don't mind, I would love for you to talk a little bit about yourself so that the audience can get to know you better. So who are you?
All right. I live in Southern California, 31 years old, full-time employee at a manufacturing company. We manufacture pocket knives. It's my family's business, so I've been there since I was little, basically. And it's tough, but I enjoy it, and it's very stressful sometimes. But I call myself boss lady, so it's kind of cool. I live a very active lifestyle. I love to snowboard, love rowing, love jujitsu. I love to sail. I love sailing on the weekends when it's nice and sunny outside. And I would consider myself a competitive person when it comes to working out and all that, which is kind of a curse, I guess you could say sometimes. So, but yeah, I love being outdoors and love family time and hanging out with my nephews and yeah, just trying to enjoy life.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you got a lot going on. That sounds really fun. I know sailing in Southern California sounds like a nice hobby. So that's really nice. Cool. Awesome. Well, so for those that are listening that don't know you and just want to have the context for our conversation today, you're one of my clients from my Get Your Period Back program. And so you had shared with me at this point, it was probably a couple months ago that you had emailed me an update with how you were doing. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I have to have her on the podcast because she's just doing so great. And it's just really awesome to see the progress that you've made in your health. So before we talk about where you are today, I would love to hear from you. Where were you when you were thinking about joining Get Your Period Back? Like, what was life like, and what were you specifically struggling with that led you to me?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but at that time I was doing competitive rowing. I was competing in the World Indoor Rowing Championships, which was in February. So I was training for that. I was training a lot every day, and now looking back, my body was trying to tell me, hey, you know what, you got to slow down. I was getting, my knees were hurting, my shoulders. So I was definitely in that overtraining, realm. Cause I was also training at an interval Orange Theory. I'm sure you've heard of it. I was training there on top of all this rowing training. So,
oh my gosh, you were doing Orange Theory on top of rowing.
Yeah. And now looking back, it's like, I would never do that now. You know what I mean? That's way too much. But back then I was like, I'm strong. I got this. I'm 31 years old. I'm kicking, you know what? I've got this. But I was really pushing my body too hard. And that was how I ended up with amenorrhea, which was prior to the rowing competition. I lost it a couple of years ago after getting off birth control, because birth control had regulated my period, because you get those fake bleeds. So when I got off birth control, I was like, my period isn't coming every month. And I went to my doctor, my OBGYN, and she's like, oh yeah, it could be from overtraining. I'm like, all right, maybe I'll back off a little bit. But at the same time, I was doing time restricted feeding. And I was also doing extremely low carb, borderline carnivore diet. I was just basically eating ribeyes and then the time restricted feeding. So I wasn't eating breakfast. I was eating basically lunch and dinner, and that's it. And so that was way too little calories that I was consuming on top of all the training, and then overtraining, so I wasn't in a good place. It's crazy to think about where I am now and looking back, because what I have and what I've learned, the knowledge that I have is just, I was being dumb, I was being an idiot. And I'm lucky that I didn't get physically injured, tearing muscles or anything like that. I was pretty lucky in that end, but it was like my body was saying, hey, you don't have a menstrual cycle. There's something wrong here. You're trying to run from a lion basically every day with all this cardio and pushing yourself too hard, that your reproductive health has stopped completely. So yeah, that's where I was actually for a couple of years. And I got to the point where I hit a wall on these cravings. I started getting these cravings like earlier, right after my rowing competition was really when it hit. And I was getting these cravings where I just wanted to eat chips. I wanted to eat mac and cheese and Cheez-Its and, potato chips. And I couldn't control it. It was crazy. And my mood swings were getting really bad. My parents told me, they're like, hey, you're always in a bad mood. I was still going to the gym, and I know I was being kind of mean to some of my gym partners and stuff. And then I came across, I was on Facebook, and I came across Dr. Jolene Brighton's group, and I was in that. And then on the right, it has a thing where it says recommended groups. And I saw your group, and it said, Get Your Period Back. And obviously that I didn't have my period, and that's why I joined Dr. Jolene Brighton's group. But I saw that one, and it really caught my eye because it's exactly what I needed. So I clicked on it, and then I did your little intro video, which, you join it and it's at a certain time. And I listened to your little thing that you had, and I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot, because at this point I'm getting desperate. So I joined. Yeah. And also at the same time, I went and saw my OBGYN, and she was like, okay, she did hormone testing. She's like, you have low estrogen. So we'll put you on, I think it was called estradiol, which is a synthetic hormone. She's like, we'll try and jumpstart your period. And I had already gotten off birth control, and I wasn't about to go back on any medication. And she was like, well, that's the only thing that's going to work. I'm like, okay, well, let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. And so then at that point, I thought, all right, I'm just going to dive in and see what happens in this Get Your Period Back program. And yeah, then it just started, and here I am.
Well, I have so many questions now, because I don't know if I knew that your habits were that extreme. I think because when we had talked about you joining, you were kind of like, yep, let's do it. Let's go. Like, I didn't really have to get deep into your backstory because you were already so ready to get started. So what was the reason that you were doing the really low carb intermittent fasting? Like, what was the goal of doing that?
Well, one of the other things so one of my personality traits is when I get into something, I really go into it, right? I guess you could say sometimes it becomes an obsession. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of great health podcasts. I was listening to so many of them, and I got onto those like low carb ones. There's some that are great. There are women that do low carb, and I went to extreme with it. I was like, I'm going to try this, and then it just became like, this is the only way to do it now. I'm going to do low carb. I'm going to do carnivore. And I just went to extreme with it. And then I thought, okay, this is the only diet that's like healthy. I can't eat any sugar, no carbs. So, it just became almost like an obsession. It was just because I probably had too much time on my hands and I was listening to these podcasts and wanted to be healthy, and some of those podcasts, they make it sound like, their lifestyle or their diet is the only way. It's so extreme nowadays. You see all these like fitness models on Instagram and, eat this way, eat that way. And, I just went down that route of the low carb, kind of zero carb. And I thought it could work for me because there were some people who were doing competitive rowing, with that type of diet, but it didn't work for me. It was way too extreme. So
did you, because it doesn't sound like you had any specific health challenges that you were trying to resolve with that approach. It was more just like, let me see how healthy I can get. Is that the way you were thinking?
For the most part, yes. I also did want to lose weight. I had a history of being underweight. And so when I started gaining a little bit of weight, when I started getting these like uncontrollable cravings, then I really was like trying to be too extreme about it, trying to lose like 5 pounds or whatever it was, which is like, geez,
Yeah. So you feel like there are these cravings, which I'm guessing probably were your body's attempt to tell you to eat. Like, we need calories, we need carbs. But at the time, because you had some body image issues, you thought, oh, I have to go even lower carb, or I have to do intermittent fasting because that's what's going to get rid of these cravings. Is that what you were thinking?
Right. And then when I would, like, let's say I would eat a meal that wasn't low carb, well, guess what? Then I'm going to the gym the next morning at 6 a.m. to burn it off, which is not the right way to do it. That's like punishing yourself for enjoying a cheat meal, basically. And then I'd feel guilty, really guilty, and then be miserable because I felt guilty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and like you said, it sounds like your mood was also being negatively affected by all of this extreme exercise and dieting protocols, that kind of thing. So do you feel like you were experiencing more and more just like emotional or mental, I don't know if like unrest is the word that comes to mind, but just kind of like getting this place where you felt like something had to change because you couldn't stay in that spot anymore?
Right. Yeah, it was definitely not sustainable. And yeah, I mean, the only way I can explain it really is like, it was kind of like a downward spiral, because where I was, it wasn't going to get better, and being unhappy and miserable, like that should be number one, being happy and having a sustainable life. And it was not going that way for me. And I couldn't seem to find a solution that wasn't low carb and, time restricted feeding and interval training and all that. So, when I talked to you on the phone and, we talked all this thing out, all this out, it was really, when I finally dove in with the program, the best way I can describe it is there was weight lifted off my shoulders. It was like I was becoming free. I wasn't going to be restricted in this like jail of eating a certain way, and only eating certain timeframes and having to be at the gym at 5:30 every morning. That's like jail.
Yeah. That's so awesome that you had that like initial experience of I mean, so many people, when they have to change, they get scared. It sounds like you had the opposite experience. You're like, oh, thank goodness I get to change what I'm doing because this is miserable.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, there was a couple days after I think I got through the first module and I was like, nope, there's no way. I was like, there's no way I'm going to take low carb out, fasting out, and working out. It's got to be only one of them that's causing amenorrhea. And I thought, all right, I'm going to experiment a little bit. And then I actually went on vacation to the Caribbean, and I didn't have access to the gym. We only had the food that our family could share. So, I had to get stuff that everyone wanted to eat, like sandwiches and all that. And I relaxed because I didn't really have a choice. And a week later, this was after I had finished the module, a week later, I had got my period after that trip. So because I stopped all those things that I was doing, the time restricted feeding, the intermittent fasting, low carb, and I wasn't exercising.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, she was right.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like I totally understand when you get faced with these major changes and it's like, well, what's just one thing I can do? And I'm not against baby steps. Like, I think it's important to take action in a way that makes you feel, I hate to use the word comfortable because I actually don't think, I'm sure you weren't comfortable while you were making those changes, but it was steps in the right direction that were leading you towards the ultimate changes that you needed to make, which is really good. I don't want people to, because I know in the amenorrhea world, there's a lot of recommendations that are like, oh, just eat 3,000 calories a day and stop exercising entirely. And just eat sugar and all that. And I'm not against, listen, if that works for somebody, awesome. Like people can do anything that they want that is helping them. But I do find that a lot of the women I work with, hearing that kind of recommendation, they get so overwhelmed by the drasticness of the change that they're like, I can't do that, so I'm just not going to do anything. So I feel like in the program, even though the changes I recommend, I'm sure were a little shocking to you, I feel like the goal is to say, hey, you don't have to necessarily go to the other end of the extreme and just stuff yourself. You can still eat good quality food. You can still incorporate movement, but there has to be adjustments to the way that you're doing that.
Right. And it's just funny because it was like, as soon as I went on that vacation, and it was literally only like 7 days, it was like my body was like, all right, yes, I'm communicating to you that this was, yes, you needed to lighten up a little bit on those things. And so it was just crazy. It was like my body straight up gave me my period that next week. So yeah, it was a celebration, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's nice to have that confirmation that you're on the right path, and have it happen that quickly is really nice too. And I'm interested, so you saw your OBGYN and they didn't ask you anything about your lifestyle when they were talking about your amenorrhea?
The only thing she said is amenorrhea can also be caused by over exercising. And I said, okay, well, I mean, yeah, I can dial back the exercising a little bit. I do low carb and fasting. And she was like, nope, that doesn't have anything to do with it. I was like, okay, well, I'll just keep going with that. And I did for a while, but I did end up switching doctors after that and went to one that's a more functional medicine doctor. So. Which she was all on board. I told her about you, and she was like, oh, that's great. So it's nice to find someone that's on the same page. It's not so rigid in their beliefs. And so that was also a breath of fresh air, finding someone that was supportive of the program.
Yeah. Well, also just, I guess, knowledgeable that diet does have an impact on amenorrhea, and it has a very large impact for a lot of women. So I'm just I guess nothing should shock me anymore these days, but it is sometimes shocking to me when I hear it's one thing for the doctor to not ask you about your diet, which is still, I think, inappropriate or inadequate care. And I hear this happening a lot with the women I work with, that like their doctor is just like, oh, just take the pill and you'll be fine. But to flat out like deny that your diet had anything to do with it, I think is, I'm not trying to talk down about this person, but a lot of doctors don't get nutrition education, and that shows up when they're treating patients, and they don't have the knowledge and they don't have the understanding to actually guide you in the right direction. So then it's up to you to then find the information and to, to take action and to seek out other people like me or other providers. So, I just wanted to ask you about that because I was like, did she really not ask any questions? And it was just like, medication's your only option, but I've definitely heard that before. And like I said, I wish it wasn't, I wish it was more of a shock, but it's kind of just more like disappointing to hear that, honestly. So
yeah, and that was a good learning experience for me too, because I stayed with that doctor for years and years and years. She was the one that put me on birth control and all that. I trusted her, and then going through the program and stuff, and then trying to go back to her after that experience. I was like, man, maybe I should find another doctor, and maybe I need to look further into things myself. And not that I can't trust doctors, but to do the research myself and then, pick information based on what I've learned. I learned a lot from the program from that. So that was nice.
Well, that's awesome. Now, like I said, when you and I had talked on that initial call when you were enrolling in the program, I got the impression that you were kind of already like ready to go, and I didn't have to convince you or anything like that it would be a good investment for you. But what was your experience like when you were deciding whether or not to invest in the group coaching program?
Well, at first I was a little unsure because I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never seen something that was through Facebook and that was like a health related coaching thing. I know that they were on there, but I'd never actually gone into the Facebook group and looked at one of those videos, like the one that you had provided. That was the first one I'd ever seen. And I'm like, oh, is this legit? Or, you don't know on the internet sometimes, like you just don't know. But, when I watched the video that you provided and then I talked to my sister about it, she knew everything that was going on. And she was like, just go for it. Just go for it. Like, what can you lose? Just try it. And at this point, you're desperate because your doctor just wants to put you on more birth control, and she's like, the video looks good. All the steps that you talked about, in your intro video. She said, go for it. And so I did. Wasn't really sure at the time, but then, speaking to you on the phone too was a big thing, because you get that personal touch. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, me too. And I completely understand if you're not used to doing online programs, it can be a little weird to purchase an online program and to do that. And it's funny because I've done so many online programs at this point for my own education in various areas that like the idea of being nervous about buying something because it's online is like completely, I mean, I do due diligence. I don't just buy whatever I see, but I think that piece of it being online doesn't even faze me at this point. And so I'm glad that you shared that because I know that for a lot of women, that can be a big barrier, this like just lack of understanding of what an online program would entail. And whether it's the Get Your Period Back program or any other programs that exist online, I think there's a lot of really awesome programs out there that can help with very specific challenges. And sometimes it's help that you can't get locally from a provider and maybe you aren't getting from your current healthcare practitioner. And I totally agree. If you're going to join an online program, like don't just buy any old program that comes your way, like do research, look into it, that kind of thing. But I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think we're definitely moving into a world where more of this is going to become available all the time. And I think people can get really amazing health results with an online program, not just an online program. Obviously, I think you working with a in-person integrative physician is a great idea to complement the work. But what you learned in that program, you might not have had somebody available in real life to really take you through those steps.
Right. So, and I was also a member of the Fed and Fearless Society on Facebook. And so I think that was how I got linked to the Get Your Period one, which was originally linked previously from the Dr. Jolene Brighton. So they're all linked together. But I was in the Fed and Fearless one and seeing all the women communicating in the group and, all these answers and questions and answers and everyone being super supportive. So I think that was also like kind of the cherry on top where I was like, all right, she's in here. She's communicating with people on Facebook. This is her other group. and this is the other program that she has. And so, yeah, that's what got me to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of the reason I even offer the free Fed and Fearless Society group is to show people that they can get good support online. Because I think there's so many free groups out there that maybe don't give you the best information, or they're not moderated, I guess is the best way to describe it. So like, it's kind of a free for all. Anyone can talk about anything, and you don't really know if you're getting good information or not. And so that was my goal with that free Facebook group, which we'll link to that in the show notes if people want to check that out, since that's open to all women in the public. And then just in general, having the Facebook group with the Get Your Period Back program, that's a much more specific conversation that we're having. And I think it's nice that that everybody in there is going through the same process. And then I don't know about you. I don't know if you've been in other amenorrhea groups on Facebook, but something I've noticed from the ones that I'm in myself is that our group is a lot more positive and really more focused on finding solutions, as opposed to some other groups can get a little bit like, I don't know, kind of like a therapy session. Like people are just complaining or saying how much they're like, they hate themselves or something like that. And I never see that happening in our group. So I love that the women in the program are so focused on taking action and really taking their health seriously.
Yeah. I'm not a member of any other amenorrhea groups, but that is one thing I love about ours is it's 100% positive. And when everyone posts their progress in there, everyone's like, yay. And it's so positive. I love it. And that's one of the other things that's cool about your type of programs, the group coaching. Yeah, the group the support you get from the group, and being able to communicate online with the people, ask them questions, people that have the same problems as you, they might have input or just, some support that they can give you. It's weird. It's like, it's so nice having that, other women that are going through the same problem. Mm-hmm. It's nice to know that you're not alone,
Definitely. Yeah, I'm in a variety of coaching programs that have associated Facebook groups and communities and that kind of thing. And it is really nice to be able to jump in there and ask questions and get help from people that are trustworthy, because that they have the same access to the information and you're all kind of on the journey together. And, it is a curated group. It's not for everybody. It's a specific type of person. And so, you're going to get better support, and it's not going to be just this like sporadic, like random things that people are suggesting that you do that aren't really actually going to be helpful. So I would love to hear from you, because I know that there was physical changes. I'm guessing that there was some mindset changes as well. So what would be some of the biggest mindset lessons that you learned through the work you did in the program?
Oh man. Well, one of the big ones was being able to just stop, being able to like calm the mind and just slow down and say, you know what? I don't have to go to the gym every day. I can meditate or pray instead. Like I don't, that was a big challenge for me, because I'm like a go-getter. I'm like all the time drinking my coffee in the morning, or I was drinking pre-workout and just like nonstop go, 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 And so for someone to be like, you know what, meditation or, spending more time, like maybe reading or just like, just relaxing is so important. And it took me a while to actually register that. But when I did, it made a world of difference, because it's not like something you can just say, okay, it's working. It takes time and it takes mental challenge to be able to stop. So I think that was the biggest one for me. And it was definitely the biggest impact. I downloaded this great meditation app on my phone. You just plug it in your ears and just unplug for a couple minutes. And then the feedback that you would get from your mind is it's just a really nice feeling, and prayer is the same way, or doing something like mellow, like yoga or whatever. That was huge for me.
Mm-hmm. That's a common theme with not only the women in the Get Your Period Back program, but also my Fed and Fearless coaching program, which is more of like a general health from a faith-based perspective, a lot of the women that go through that program do struggle with taking time to rest. Like we have multiple videos on rest because it is so important. And so I'm really glad that that was a habit that you were able to successfully implement.
Yeah. And another thing was, instead of overtraining, I dialed back my training a lot, so much, and then spent more time stretching and foam rolling. And it was crazy how much my body rewarded me, and the pains that I had, just like joint pains and, probably minor muscle tears from overtraining. I was so used to them. I was so used to the pain being there all the time. So I kind of just like was numb to it. And then when I slowed down and stopped training as much, it was crazy how much better I felt, and how much better I slept and how many more things I could do on the weekends. My body felt like, hey, you know what? This is way better place for you to be right now.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice any changes in your athletic performance?
You know what? I got stronger when I stopped training as much. I was able to lift way heavier weights. So I went from weight training like 5 days a week to 2. And, my deadlift went up, my squat went up, and my endurance went up because I think I was just my body was so exhausted that it was like, the output just wasn't there anymore. So then when I dialed back, and my jujitsu, I've progressed very well in my jujitsu. So that's cool. I was not expecting that. I thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought, I'm going to get out of shape, and I'm not lifting weights every day, so my muscles are going to get weaker. But no, it was the opposite. So I was stoked about that.
Yeah, I feel like most women, when I tell them about like less is more when it comes to training, it's almost like you can't understand it until you've done it and experienced it. Because I've had a variety of different training methods myself over the last, like 15 years or something, based on different athletics that I was in. And then once I was out of competitive athletics, just transitioning into like normal adult training routines. And the routine I've been doing for the last, 2020? So I guess getting close to 5 years now, maybe 3 days a week, usually 2 to 3 as an average for lifting. And it's pretty shocking to me just how effective that can be. And assuming you're doing like, a pretty well thought out workout routine. Obviously, you can't just go to the gym and do dumbbell curls 3 days a week and get really strong or anything like that. But having the appropriate training routine and then taking that rest in between sessions, that's where the sweet spot is to get the results that you want to get. And so it's like, if you're going to do all that work and not get your best results, like what is even the point of training that hard, right? So
exactly. Yeah. And one thing that you had mentioned, I'm not sure where you said it, but it was something along the lines of you're trying to find the most effective but the least amount of effort, or I can't remember how you worded it, but it's really resonated with me. I'll have to find it after, but it was basically like just the right amount of working out, not overdoing it, but it'll be the most effective in that spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if that, I assume I mentioned something about that in the program, but I feel like I've mentioned before that my goal with all the women I work with is to help them get to the least amount of effort for the maximum results.
That's it.
So,
yeah. Yep, that was it.
Mm-hmm. Which I feel like is so counterintuitive to so many women because, and I've been there before where it was like more is better. Like go to the gym 5 days a week, go to the gym 6 days a week if you can go. So the ability to say, hey, 2 to 3 days a week is actually not only way easier on my schedule and my body, but it's possibly even more effective to get the results I want to get. I think a lot of times it can be hard to believe until you actually do it and then see what happens and then see the results that you can actually experience. So that's really cool that you had that outcome. And I'm sure it makes your life a lot easier to not have to go to the gym so often.
Yeah, totally. And it's more sustainable too. If I had continued working out like 5 to 6 days a week, where's my body going to be in 10 years? I'm not going to be able to do that same type of workout. I'm probably going to wither away. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely more sustainable, and my body has communicated to me that it's where it's better. It's much better, and I'm happier, and so it's a good spot to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, I would love to hear a little bit about just beyond the physical and mental results that you've gotten. How has your life changed after going through the program and making all these adjustments to the way that you approach life?
oh my gosh, so many ways. It's changed in so many ways. I mean, like I was telling you before, I had these mood swings and I was just unhappy. And I'm pretty sure, even though no one has told me, I'm pretty sure I was like kind of miserable to be around at times. And so my mood is, my stress, the way I manage my stress now, and I just feel less stressed. I'm sure my cortisol levels are in a regular level. I also, found a man. So that was cool because I think that had I met this guy before when I was going through this like weird, amenorrhea and overtraining, it wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have been good timing. Who knows? Maybe I would have just blown him off. But so he came at the right time, which is great. And yeah, I mean, the no more mood swings, and the thing with my relationship with food is much better. I haven't weighed myself in like probably over 6 months, but not like I think I'm overweight or anything, but the fact that I'm not stressed about going on the scale every morning is like, it's like freedom, because I was a slave to the scale. I really was. So that's was big for me. And like I said, I kind of felt like I was going in a downward spiral. Like everything was kind of just not going the way it was supposed to, but I didn't know how to fix it. And now I feel like my life is where it's supposed to be. And, my reproductive health is in line. And I guess you could call it like homeostasis. Like, I feel like my life is balanced, and this is, moved over into, my work. I'm doing better at work. I'm managing my stress better at work. My relationship with my family and my friends is better. So it all kind of is related to it, and it feels good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing about the ripple effects that go so much beyond just the physical health. Because I think with amenorrhea, something that I get a little frustrated about is when I talk to women that are dealing with it, and I don't know, like sometimes I honestly wonder if the hormonal issues and the mental issues that you deal with when you have that symptom, it's almost like you can't see what could be possible for your life. Like you don't even know that there's so many things that are not as good as they could be, or just flat out like not good. Like you were saying, you probably didn't realize you were maybe not the most fun person to be around, or maybe not the most pleasant company to have. And I'm assuming might not have even realized that you were acting any different way, or that there was anything unusual about the way that you were interacting with people. So it's almost like when you're in it, you can't see what life could be like once you get out of it. And I love that you're sharing this, because it is something that I want other women that are dealing with this or in this situation to know, that there is so much available to them beyond just having a period on the other side of these changes. Because at the end of the day, I mean, like, yeah, getting a regular period is good, but it's not exactly the most fun thing. Like, I mean, it's even a healthy period that doesn't have symptoms. It's not like that's a fun experience to have. So I think just understanding that, like, getting your period back is just an indicator of you making big changes that'll really ripple out into all areas of your life, and in ways that a lot of times I don't think you can even predict.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy thinking about where I am now and where my mindset was back then. I had no idea that I could be this happy, just not saying like, oh, it's the guy that I'm dating or anything. It's just me being me, feeling like myself, knowing that I'm in a good spot, and I'm healthy, and I don't have amenorrhea anymore. It's just, yeah. So you're right. It's really nice to be out of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny because you're definitely not the only person I've worked with that ended up finding a relationship after they did all this work. Like we had an interview with one of my clients, Natalie, if people want to jump back to episode 8 of the podcast where we talked to Natalie. She's another one of my clients that met her. I think they're still fiance. I'm not sure when their wedding is going to be, but she's going to be getting married soon to somebody that she met while we were working together. And because she had been so obsessed with her body, so obsessed with working out, like spent all of her time at the gym, she doesn't think she'd be able to have even met that person if she had been still in that mindset and still having that emphasis in her life. So I just think it's really cool to see, and not that we're saying like the goal is to get a boyfriend or the goal is to get a husband, but when you're in a great relationship and you're confident and you feel like the person loves you for who you are and all of that, it's just such a different experience in all areas of your life than being in this situation where you're constantly trying to be different or you're constantly trying to be good enough for other people, which I think a lot of these behaviors really stem from.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like me.
Oh, well, I'm excited for you. It sounds like you have a lot of really awesome stuff going on, and just being able to enjoy the things that are going on is so important because, maybe you might have met this person and maybe you'd be dating them, but if you were in a bad mood all the time or being at the gym all the time, couldn't spend time with them, maybe you wouldn't have the relationship you want to have. So, so something that I love to chat about on this podcast, being a faith-based podcast and being one that, my ultimate mission with all the work that I do is to help women use food and fitness to fuel their purpose. So what do you believe is your purpose for this season of life that you're currently in?
Well, I do think that this happened for a reason. All of this whole thing started from years ago when I lost my period. And, I think that this happened to me because I was supposed to get better and healthy and be able to spread the knowledge that I've learned through the program to other women that are in my life. I know a lot of people have struggled with that same, wanting to be super healthy or underweight or, trying to follow all these, models and, stuff on Instagram and try to be perfect. So I think that, part of my purpose is to help spread the knowledge and from what I've learned to them. And I do firmly believe that. And I have helped a couple of my friends with it already. And it feels really good to be able to provide the information, saying this is what I went through. And, so I know how it is and look at this information and, find out for yourself if you wanted to stop low carb or whatever, just to get your period back. That's important to have a period. So it's been cool for me to spread the information to other women I know,
Yeah. And I feel like that's one of the things I've heard from a lot of the women that I work with, both in the Get Your Period Back program and just in general, is that ability to be a role model for the other women in their life who maybe are in a similar situation or, have those mistaken beliefs about what is best for their bodies. And it's not like you're going around like street preaching or something, like trying to force it on people, I'm sure. But I do think being able to talk to the friends that you care about and just, look out for them and have that influence on them that they maybe wouldn't have had without you being that person to go first. I think that's really awesome. And I know that being on this podcast, I'm sure you are inspiring hundreds of women, hopefully thousands. My goal is to get this message out to as many women as possible. So I'm just really grateful that you came on the show today to be able to share your story with people and show people what's possible. Now, like I said, with enrolling in the program, I know that you had kind of made your decision that this was something that you were going to take seriously and that you were going to figure out and do the work necessary to get the results that you wanted to get. And I know that you're the kind of person that, well, I shouldn't say I know, but I can kind of get the impression from our conversation that you're the kind of person that won't take no for an answer about getting the things that you want to achieve or getting the result you want to get. So not all women are like that. I think there's a lot of women out there that they don't necessarily have that level of go-getterness or like I said, refusal to not get the result. I think a lot of women also deal with fear and worry that they're going to do something wrong or worry that they are going to fail. And I would just love to know, what would you say to somebody, maybe like a friend of yours who was considering investing a significant amount of money and getting coaching or getting support in either the amenorrhea world or just in general from a health perspective?
Yeah, I mean, as far as group coaching goes, I think that the support that you get, not only from, well, let's just put it this way. Let's say you were to go see a doctor in person. You're getting information and support from one person, right? Versus doing group coaching. So it might be one coach or multiple coaches. Like in yours, you have multiple coaches in the some of the programs online. Plus, you have all these people who are going through the same exact thing as you, or similar, in the group, whether it's on Facebook or some other type of platform where you can communicate to them. So it's comparing one professional to this whole community of people you get to talk to and get support from, ask questions. I mean, it's crazy to even compare that because, it's such a huge difference in the type of information that you get back and the support. It doesn't, seeing one person, it just doesn't really compare. So for women who are looking to do online coaching, group coaching, I say go for it, as long as it's a legitimate source and you're not going to get lose money if you think it's something like a scam. But there's a lot of women that you can get the reviews from now and it's great. I'm 100% on board with group coaching.
And do you feel like from an investment perspective, do you feel like it was a worthwhile investment to spend? I mean, let's be honest, it's not a cheap program to do the work that you did. Do you feel like it was worth the investment for you?
Yes, I do. And I mean, how important, in this case, it was, amenorrhea, so health, women's reproductive health. I mean, how important is your health to you, like that's what you have to weigh. I mean, if you're going to spend money on other things that are, purses of whatever versus your health, I think health should be number one. So yes, I do think it was worth it. And you have the payment plan, the monthly thing, which is what I did, which made it manageable. So yes, I am 100% glad that I spent the money and I got my money's worth, and all this information that I have that I'm going to be able to spread and to other people. And I can go back and go on the Facebook group and view the modules anytime. So it's, unlimited information basically. So worth it.
Awesome. Yes. Well, like I said, I think sometimes when we think about investing money in ourselves, no matter what the cost is, it can be hard to justify, especially if it's something that you don't know anybody else buying online programs or you've never bought one before versus going out and getting the latest iPhone. It's a little bit easier to, justify spending. I don't even know what they cost. They're probably over $1,000. I haven't shopped for an iPhone in 3 years now. So, but what I was going to say is that I think it can feel scary and it can feel like worrisome that you're going to waste your money. But as you said, if the program is something that there's evidence that it gets results in whatever area of health, let alone amenorrhea, and just having that opportunity to be supported by so many people in so many different ways, I think it's definitely something that pays out and then also ripples out into so many areas of your life that, I just think it's really cool to see the results that you've gotten. And I'm very happy that you feel like it was worth the money and that you feel like you got the value that you were looking for. So I guess the last question, well, actually I have two more questions for you. One would be if you have any final advice or words of wisdom for the women who are listening today.
Yeah, a couple things. Listen to your body. If you don't have a period, something's wrong. If you have mood swings, something's wrong. Sometimes you get so used to these symptoms and you think that they're normal and they're actually not. It's your body trying to tell you, hey, there's something not level. Something's not in alignment. And I'm trying to tell you this, but that was one thing I really struggled with. So I think that's very important. Multiple opinions. If you're going to actual doctors, I think it's important to get multiple opinions. If doctor's trying to put you on, a synthetic hormone or something, you might want to go get a second opinion, because that stuff can sometimes do more harm than good. Oh, and the other thing is, don't strive for perfection, strive for progress, because perfection is almost unattainable most of the time. And I've tried so hard and it is exhausting. So progress is good, even if it's one tiny little change, that's progress. So
awesome. I love it. And I have a question that I ask every guest that comes on the show, and I would love to hear what your perspective is. So what do you believe makes a woman more than a body?
Well, courage, strength, being able to impact others in positive ways, being able to not just look at the physical person or how they look or how much they weigh, being able to see what that person actually brings to the table. And that's a tough one. There's so many things.
The good news is there's no wrong answer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's far beyond physical, that's for sure. There's so much more to people than what they look like and what they wear and all that. That's one thing that I've learned in the last couple months, is that, your scale and how much makeup you have on that's the least important,
Well, thanks for playing. I know every time I ask this question, I don't prepare people for it, because I want to get their initial impression. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I love your answer. And it's funny, because I know I always tell people in advance the general topics we're going to talk about, and I don't tell them that. So unless they listen to my podcast, but I think it's just cool.
I like it though.
It's just cool to get all the different perspectives and just hear what different women have to say about that question. Since, like you said, it sounds like you've learned a lot in the last couple of months about what makes you more than a body and the kind of things that your body needs to thrive, as opposed to look a certain way or to try to perform a certain way. So anyway, I am just so grateful that you came on today, Rachael. I know that your story is going to be really inspiring to so many women, and just really glad that you could come on and talk to us today. And I got to know a little bit more about your story than I even had known before this. So I'm just really pleased to have had you on today.
Well, thank you. This has been awesome. And I'm so glad I was able to do it. And I can't thank you enough for all the things that you've provided to me and all the other women in the program, all the programs. It's been life-changing for me, and in a very, very positive way. And I wouldn't change it. I would not change anything about it. So very happy, and really happy to still be in contact with you and be able to go in the Facebook groups and all that. So it's great. It's so cool that I came across this, discovered the groups and all that. So
yeah, well, I've just loved having you in the program and seeing, you just took such fast action. And I think the results that you've experienced just go to show the level of commitment that you had to yourself. And I love having you in the group, because it's just nice to have someone in there that, as people come and join and they're starting their journey, it's just awesome to know that there's someone like you in there that can be a mentor to them. So thank you for sharing all that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for hanging out with me and Rachael today. We will see you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Hey everyone, Laura Schoenfeld here again. Are you one of the nearly 45% of female athletes who experience menstrual irregularity? Have you gone more than 3 months in a row without a period? If so, keep listening, because I have a special training just for you. As a women's health expert and functional medicine dietitian, I've successfully helped hundreds of women recover their periods quickly with my evidence-based holistic approach, whether they had hypothalamic amenorrhea, polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS, or post-birth control syndrome. Seeing these women recover their hormonal health, get their period back, and even get pregnant was truly a joy. And I knew I just had to get this information out to as many women as I could. And I can't wait to share this truly life-changing information with you too. That's why I'm excited to share with you my free online video training, How to Get a Regular Period Without Birth Control. On this free training, you'll learn why any woman who wants to get her period back and get pregnant should not take the birth control pill. The single most important thing women must know about following the right diet if they want to get their period back and prepare for a healthy pregnancy. Why quitting exercise isn't necessary for period recovery, but you do have to have the right approach to working out. Why chasing weight gain or even weight loss is a total waste of time when trying to recover a normal menstrual cycle. You'll also learn 5 common myths preventing so many women from getting their period back so they can get pregnant naturally. And even their doctors are confused about these 5 myths. I'll also show you how to save time and money on your journey to becoming a mom and starting a family. And finally, you'll learn my proven 4-step protocol that has helped dozens of women get their periods back so they can get pregnant fast and without using risky medications. So if you want to get your period back quickly without resorting to birth control, quitting exercise, or giving up the healthy lifestyle that you love, then this free online workshop is for you. To get instant access to the free training, go to getyourperiodback.com. You'll learn everything you need to know about recovering a regular, healthy period without giving up the healthy foods and exercise that you love. Check it out at getyourperiodback.com, and I'll see you on the training.